Hello and welcome to a special edition of Maddie Allin Live with special guest Chrispy, and we're going to be going over crypto FIRE, financial independence, retire early. So this is going to be for all you Hexicans out there who are looking to onboard new people and who are hoping to be able to learn more of the basics of why we're in this. So our format here, first of all, welcome Chrispy.
Hey, thanks, Maddie. I appreciate the invite.
And so you have created a phenomenal resource for people to use. And so you've got your educational PDF here for us that I was so impressed with that I had to have you as a guest on the show. And so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I know about it. It's awesome. And so I'm going to play my intro here, and then we will watch three-minute videos explaining what HEX is, and then we'll hand the floor over to you.
All right.
Cool. So the introductory videos that we have here for people were made a few months ago, and so some corrections. HEX is now up over 1,000x and has been around for a year and a half now. And so we'll go ahead and give people an introduction here. Let's see.
What is this HEX, you might ask? HEX is a cryptocurrency, albeit a very different type of cryptocurrency. You see, instead of simply spending or trading this cryptocurrency, HEX lets you lock up your money and gain interest on it. We already do this through our banks. It is what the banking industry calls CDs, or certificates of deposit. Customers lock up their wealth for a certain time, and in turn they grow their wealth by earning interest. But the old school currencies that we lock up in our banks suffer from inflation, which means that while you are gaining interest over time, your money is also losing some of its value. This is where HEX shines, because HEX is the first high-interest paying cryptocurrency. HEX takes the profit out of banks and government money printing and gives it to HEX holders. HEX is actually designed to increase in value. In fact, the value of a single HEX token has multiplied by more than 80 times within the first handful of months it was launched. Which means the HEX holders not only gained interest, but they also multiplied their existing investment exponentially. And it's only just getting started. What makes HEX even more reliable is the fact that HEX is a trustless peer-to-peer system, which means that there is no central power that controls the system. Everything is powered by the users without any counterparty risk. It's pretty, interesting. To get started, head to hex.com. Links below. Farewell.
The secret to gaining the highest ROI in HEX lies in a little-known mechanism called shares. When you stake your HEX, you receive shares. It's kind of like a guarantee. Your shares guarantee you back your principal, plus a percentage of interest and bonuses over time. The key to achieving the highest ROI in HEX is acquiring as many shares as you possibly can by staking early and staking long. The earlier you stake and the longer you stake, the higher your ROI will be. The brilliance of the share design is this. Every time a stake is ended anywhere in the world, those shares are effectively burned. They cease to exist. This means that every single day there are less and less shares to be had. This also means that every moment you wait to get and stake HEX, the share pool is dwindling. Now why does that matter? HEX is programmed to pay out the highest interest and rewards to those who own the most shares. That's why it matters. Staking early is key, but it's not everything. How do you get the most shares? You stake longer than everyone else. The maximum length you can stake is 5,555 days, or 15.2 years. If you want to get into HEX early and become a whale, how do you do it? You stake today, right now, this very moment, and you stake for 5,555 days. As everyone else's stakes expire, you end up holding the largest bag of shares in the network. This guarantees you receive the largest percentage of interest and bonuses. Don't want to wait 15 years to realize your profit? The beauty of HEX is that it's designed to pay out perpetual passive income to its holders, just like a traditional banking CD. This is done by creating what we call a stake ladder. Imagine if you had 1 million HEX and you broke it up into 65,000 HEX stakes from year 1 to 15, setting a stake every year for 15 years. This is called a stake ladder, and there are many ways to design them to work best for you. Some hexers create a staking ladder that pays them every 2 years, some every quarter, and some every month. The idea is that on a semi-regular basis, you'll have fully mature stakes that you can cash out for the next 15 years, or even indefinitely. The smartest hexers have plans to only cash out the interest each period and restake their principal out for 15 more years. This allows them to earn passive income indefinitely from HEX. HEX is a vastly superior product to that of traditional banking time deposit accounts, and it's the purest form of decentralized finance. There is no company, no middlemen, and no gatekeepers in HEX. It's a triple audited autonomous product built on the blockchain that has 100% uptime. Welcome to the future.
HEX is the first certificate of deposit on the blockchain. It's an immutable smart contract that rewards those who lock up their coins when they stake. In other words, HEX was designed to be like a long-term savings account, but with far greater yield than anything the bank has to offer. If you're new to cryptocurrencies, here's how all of this works. When you purchase HEX, it behaves just like any other cryptocurrency. They vary in price as people trade them, just like Bitcoin. However, unlike other crypto assets, HEX pays you interest in the form of more HEX for locking up your monetary value for a selective period of time. The longer you time lock your HEX, the higher your interest rate will be. This is not unlike a traditional banking certificate of deposit. The key difference is, HEX was designed to yield extraordinarily high rates of return versus typical banking products, and puts you in complete control over your finances. But what does this really look like? Some people get into HEX without understanding enough about the product. They immediately make a large investment and throw out a few random stakes between 1 to 2 years. While this is great, HEX was designed to produce significant returns in both interest and fiat value over the course of several years, not just 1 or 2. If you properly understand its design, you can set yourself up to earn a perpetual passive income from HEX. This is like planting an orchard of apple trees. Apple trees are designed to take time to fully mature before they yield significant amounts of produce. HEX was designed in much the same way. Could you imagine trying to live on 2-year-old fruit trees that only just started producing a fraction of their full potential? Sure, you may see significant growth and even yield a little produce, but it would be impossible to enjoy the fruits of your labor for years to come. But what if you employed a longer-term plan in the development of your apple orchard? What if you planted a new crop each year from years 1 to 15? And what if you continued this process every year thereafter? If you did this, you would essentially have a never-ending supply of apples for generations. Can you imagine how much produce you receive from your 10 to 15-year-old apple trees? You could supply enough apples to feed a small country. This is exactly how HEX Savings works. It's a long-term savings account. Now, I'm not saying you should lock up all of your HEX for 15 years and forget about it, although some have, and they seem to be quite happy with their decision. I'm saying If you build a proper staking ladder, one that sets stakes to mature up to 10 or 15 years from today, you can enjoy the maximum yield on your investment for years to come. Having stakes set to mature between years 1 through 15 allows you to enjoy the fruits of your investment early, while also giving you the patience and discipline to reap potentially life-changing rewards in the longer term. It's the same as enjoying the abundant fruits of a 15-year-old apple tree versus a 1-year-old tree. Imagine if Bitcoin was designed this way. All of those who bought Bitcoin for $1 in the early years maybe wouldn't have sold all of their holdings at $10 and missed out on an additional 600,000% ROI in less than 7 years, not to mention where the price is today. Maybe if Bitcoin earned more Bitcoin in the form of interest for holding, more investors would hold long-term and be less likely to sell. These supply and demand economics cause the price to soar with very little sell pressure. It's a model that allows everyone the opportunity to succeed. What happens if the global HEX network only sells their interest monthly, quarterly, or yearly and restakes their remaining principal? Theoretically, it allows for the most stable price appreciation to the upside over time. Climbing prices, coupled with unparalleled interest rates for HEX stakers, creates a positive feedback loop that ultimately leads to one thing: freedom for all. Learn more and get started today at hex.com.
And we're back.
Freedom.
So this is a part of a playlist that I have here that I can share with people here in the comments. It's called What is HEX and HEX Cameos, because it has my HEX cameos that have clips of Richard in there and all the different celebrities that have contributed to HEX cameos.
I think I've seen a few of these videos before.
Yeah, I didn't make the first three. Those are made
Yeah.
by different members of the community.
Yeah. No, they're pretty awesome though, huh? You know, think about onboarding people today. I mean, we had to figure all this stuff out in the beginning ourselves, individually,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Like,
So how long have you been in HEX?
Since before it was HEX. Right,
Nice.
so back when it was Bitcoin HEX, and then before that, when it wasn't, it was a different coin. You know, my story sounds a lot like a lot of other people. You know, started following Richard through 2017, listening to a lot of advice, not taking it all. You know, getting mad at him when he said Bitcoin was at the top and it was going down. And boy, did he call that right?
Yeah.
You know. I
Called the bottom
endeavored
too,
to.
though. That's when I started
He
listening to
did.
him more.
He did. I'm endeavoring these days to actually act on the advice rather than just listening to it.
Uh-huh.
You know, to see that he's right. Wow. Hey, you know, he's batting 1,000 so far. I mean, I'm not gonna argue with the success that way.
Yeah, and I know everybody's super excited about Pulse Chain coming out soon.
Oh yeah, that's nonstop excitement every day now.
Yeah.
Just waiting for that. I'm on board with that too. People got a gift last night. That dip was huge. You know.
How low
Of course,
did
I
it go?
bought right before the gift.
Yeah.
Down a little bit below cents.
How
Right.
far down?
So I think it was 4.8. Somebody might be able to post up and say what it
Oh,
did, but
wow.
I think it went a little bit below 5.
Nice.
But hey, I still remember the good old days when it was 1.5. Like last week, right? 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
it's trucking along.
So
Of course, I
we've
love the
been
there too. Yeah.
People are saying there's a 37% dip, and now it's back up to what, 5.5 cents, somewhere in there.
Yeah, those with a little bit more patience, bought that right back up. You know, that's all good. The videos you showed are pretty cool because I think they fit into this topic really well, and because it's really about that passive income. And Maddie, I guess congratulations, come out first, right? You're giving up your job, moving on to what your retire early looks like.
Yeah. My plan is to work more than ever, but not for someone else. Be working for myself, building solutions for mental health on the pulse chain. The technology is here, or at least it'll be here in the next month or two, in order to have cheap or free transactions. And that will allow
I know.
me to continue the mental health work that I'm doing with individuals on a larger scale, I believe. So I thank you very much. I'm feeling really blessed that I listened to Richard, and that I made a small investment in HEX early on. And now that has allowed me to have financial independence.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. It's a great story for sure. And when you first started streaming, and I was listening to, I didn't get it at first, but I got it after a while. Your approach and what you were going after, and I really do applaud it, and I do think it syncs pretty close to what we're going to talk about and get into. I don't know if I had told you this. Because I going back and forth with messages. I also retired early last month. I can't say it's 100% because of HEX, because I've been working on it for a long time, but HEX has a big part of that.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and and that's why but this planning is really important, and I think that we have that ability. Everybody who's listening to the stream or is trying to learn about this. HEX can be used as a tool to make that, make whatever it is you want to do come true. And it's not overnight success, get rich quick. But, with the staking ladders and what you can put together with it, you can really build a solid stream of passive income. I'll show a couple numbers, and we'll talk about a couple numbers that
Cool.
make that possible. So, how did I end up talking about this, and why did I put this together? That might be a good explanation. So there's something out there called FIRE, which is Financial Independence, Retire Early. It's more of a philosophy, and it's loose, right? There's no set rule set that says you have to do things a certain way. And there's a real emphasis on the financial independence. And I think that resonates with us as Hexicans pretty strongly, right?
Yes.
Most of us, there's some of us, I have to admit, at first, I did think about getting rich, right? You want to earn fast money and all that, but that's not usually how true wealth comes. It takes time and persistence. It's a marathon. It's not a race. It's 1,000 steps. You pick your way of talking about it. And so the financial independence part of it is having a plan to know what it is that will allow you to do what you want to do. And the retire early part is, sure, if you want to retire early, that's great too. But like you, most people don't just, you're not going to retire early and go sit in a chair, right?
Correct.
Well, my wife warns me of that, right? So that you better get out of that chair. So, but so you want to have plans and you want to do things, and like doing things like this, right? Giving back to a community that you're part of. And so really that's what the FIRE movement's all about. And there's a lot of literature out there. You can find it on the Wikipedia. There's some really good groups in Reddit that talk about it. And they have an awful lot of analysis that's there. So I was pretty interested in FIRE, for my own purposes, predating my involvement in crypto, right? And how to make it to the point that I could retire, because like everybody else, there was a time where I said, I'm going to work until I'm dead. I also said that I would probably end up at Walmart, and as a greeter at some store. And at one point, had no ability to really retire and didn't really think that was going to come true. But all that changed when I put a plan in place, started taking action on the plan. So again, kind of goes back to this. Now, if I talk to the FIRE community, there are a lot of crypto folks who are very familiar with FIRE, but it's a traditionalist type of a movement. They're still stuck, in the old financial system, a way of doing things, and we'll go over a couple things like that. So really trying to take it on the other way and say, hey, listen, for us Mexicans, and that are involved in this community, maybe some of you already have it all figured out. Maybe some people could use a little bit of help, a little bit of information. So let's go through it. And
Yes.
so how to incorporate cryptocurrency in HEX.
Perfect.
Right. All right. So a couple of things real quick. I thought these would be good. Right. One is disclaimer. We're just talking. No financial advice, of course, and entertainment purposes only, etc. And it's a little bit of coaching. A lot of ways to do things, and you can figure out your own ways and make your own decisions that way. So these are just opinions that we're going to talk about. More importantly, on crypto safety, I think never a bad time to bring this up. Don't share your seed phrases. Don't put them in any websites. Don't send anybody anything. Elon Musk is not going to pay your mortgage. He's not going to send you twice as much Bitcoin as you send him, or twice as much HEX. And as always, not your keys, not your crypto.
And I would add to that MetaMask announced yesterday that they're changing the name of a seed phrase to secret phrase, or secret seed phrase, in order to protect people. And then another point is that during the Pulse launch phase, I know myself and some other streamers are willing to go live for hours at a time to help make sure that people don't send money to the wrong addresses, because scammers abound. So
absolutely, make sure
safety
you're checking
first.
your addresses. Yeah. And to add to that, for those who don't have hardware wallets, I've seen a lot of people talking on the chat about MetaMask. They're fairly cheap. They're very reliable. Get one. Think about getting one. Because
only from the original manufacturer. Don't buy one from Amazon. Don't buy one from a third party. You have to order these from overseas. The Ledger Nano S is on sale for $59 right now.
Yeah, it's cheap. And you can, I actually heard somebody talking about hacking one of those, not hacking it isn't getting into it, but you can actually set those up. I hadn't thought about this use, but you don't necessarily need to have 20 of these devices. You can have 20 different seed phrases and 20 different wallets and use the same one by resetting it. I thought that was an interesting thing. A lot of people get worried because they don't want to pay, the $60 times 3, 4, 5, or whatever they're doing. I thought that was pretty interesting. That came up in the chat yesterday. A little bit of tip there. That's not my pro tip, but somebody else can come up with it. So when we talk about this, we'll try not to make this a lecture. We'll just talk at high levels about it. But what we're intending to do is talk about the FIRE movement and what that is. And most importantly, I thought this had a lot of segue into topics you've had recently, Maddie, talking about identifying and understanding why you do the things that you do. What are the behaviors, and what behaviors do you want to change? And we'll get into a couple slides and talk about it. But what you think about life, what your worldview is, really does affect the decisions you make. And you probably even talk about it a little bit. And what's the difference between diamond hands or graphene hands versus wet soggy hands, weak hands. A lot of it has to do with your conviction, what you believe, what your values are, and then how that affects what you do. And a huge part of that is really understanding your needs and your wants. And like a lot of other processes, whether you're talking about change or grieving or anything else, you got to, it takes some time to know yourself. And some people spend an entire lifetime trying to figure that out, right? I do it, other people do it. Maybe they don't admit that they do it, but it takes time to do that. But only with self-examination can you really, try to understand how to change your behavior. And so, along with that, you can kind of apply these, this approach to setting your financial goals, creating and following budget plans, and ultimately reaching those financial goals through those plans.
Another thing to note there under the psychology of kind of knowing yourself and your goals comes along with this idea of HEX allowing you to have a moment of clarity persist for many years on end, and not because you're maintaining it or not because you're not changing, but because you've created a smart contract with yourself and with the HEX blockchain. And so what you're able to do is to lock your money. I call it sending money to your future self through the fourth dimension of time. And with that time lock that you're doing, you're not only earning trustless interest, but you're also saving yourself from yourself. Because a lot of people, when they bought Bitcoin at $1 and then it spiked up to $1,000, right? They sold because they made their first million and they weren't locked in, and then they missed out on becoming a billionaire. And so with HEX, you're able to not only have a plan, but HEX is the mechanism with staking that allows you to stick to your plan, even if you're like everybody else and you have emotions and your emotions and your plans kind of fluctuate over time. And so having that persistence in your plan and that time lock as a part of your plan, I think makes all the difference in the world in this case.
Yeah, it's huge, right? It's like the backbone you didn't know you needed.
Yes.
Give you the structure that's there because,
Yes.
honestly, I don't know if I was a Bitcoin maxi OG that I wouldn't have sold either, right?
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you 100%. And staking gives us that structure we know from the past, at least with crypto, that holding is the way to accumulate wealth with crypto. And with the interest
Yes.
from HEX, you have that ability. So having just a little bit extra help, to not go and emergency end stake and sell your coins, And it's crazy. I find myself doing it too. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watching this get the same feelings we do. We buy the tops, we sell the lows. I mean, it's crazy, but I mean, you see it all the time in all the markets, and it's a real thing. And really, that being ingrained, that mentality being ingrained in us, it's hard to fight.
Yes.
And if you're not thinking about it consciously, you're just going to go with it.
Mm.
And I think that a lot of, because I've done it before, I'm sure I'll do it again. But I'm going to be better in the future. I won't do it as much.
Having a plan and using practice and education really makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. And I think your program and what you've been doing with the community is a big part of that. Because it kind of exposes the understanding of what's going on in people's heads, and when you bring up a lot of points that other folks might not, right? From a psychology perspective. So what is FIRE? Well, we already defined it a couple times, but it's really an approach, to how to create the financial behaviors, and this is really what we're talking about, that will promote your financial independence, what you want to do, and support retiring early if that's your desire. Like I said, there are a lot of resources out there that folks can get. Now, some of these points here are good ones. We'll spend a little bit of time on this slide, but there's different types of fire. And yes, so I am stealing from that environment, you know, that community a little bit. And I came up and coined hex fire because I think it sounds cool, right?
It does.
And it's kind of what I'm doing for sure. I mean, it's not kind of, it is what I'm doing. So there are different categories, you know, that people have created, and these are all made up, but I mean they're pretty interesting. So some different ways to look at it is, so what would FIRE be? Financial independence. Well, financial independence is that you don't need to go work a job to pay your expenses, right? You may choose to go work a job or different jobs, or work a job for less money, or pursue, you know, the love of your life, right? To go work and build your own company and not have to worry about whether or not your four walls stay up and whether you can pay your bills and, you know, whether you're going to eat. So a couple ways to look at it. One way is what they call lean fire, and this one actually gets me fired up. I would say I'm probably sitting around the lean fire area as to what I've tried to do in my pursuit of early retirement, if I'm not including HEX. And you know, the number that they throw out there is that really to be able to be financially independent, you should have 25 times your annual expenses, which on average is about 60K a year right now. Now, why this gets me fired up is, even if it's true, it really does piss me off, right? Because when I'm talking about this with people, or I receive this message, you're really saying is, hey kid, you need to figure out how to save $1.5 million.
Wow.
So go save $1.5 million. Otherwise, you know, the message is forget it. And I think some people take it that way. Now, where do these numbers come from? The average in the United States is about 60,000 USD per year to be able to run a household, you know, and live the American dream. And that's on the lean side. The lean side. Obviously, there's people that make a lot more than that, and there are definitely some people that make less than that. If you were to save up the 25 times your annual expenses and only withdraw about 4% per year, that would be something around the 60,000 range. And so this is where it comes from. And it's based on mathematical models of the stock market over the last 100 years, traditional stock market, and what could happen. And it's a 99% bet that if you were to save $1.5 million up and put it in the bank, or not the bank, but in the stock market, and you only withdrew 4% per year, that you would weather 99% of all storms.
Perpetual. You'd have perpetual income.
Perpetual income. So how does that fit into what we're talking about here? Well, the equivalent at the moment, roughly, somebody else can do the math because the price keeps moving around, but roughly right now, you need 500 T shares at the current price and payout to have a income of $60,000 per year. So about 500 T shares today. And of course, you know, that would run, if you're going out maybe just a very short stake, that would run about 9 million HEX and maybe a $500,000 investment, which I would point out is 1/3 of what you would require. And this is, you know, this is just on a basis of share rate, not percentages. But that would be 1/3 of the necessary investment. And if you go out 15 years, if you've got the time, and you put your stakes out at least 15 years out, and I know what that sounds like, but just for illustration purposes, you really only need 1/3 of the 500. And so a person who could accumulate a good amount of stakes and hit that 500 number can do it a lot cheaper than in the traditional finance area. And this is before all the moon math, right? This is current price. current share. I tend to go really conservative with it, right, when I do it,
Yes.
because I'm really concerned that I want to make sure I'm a real concerned person. So not a concern troll, but I'm thinking about it. And
Sure.
when you start adding in, price appreciation and the hockey stick curve of potentially where share rate goes, it, you can see that you can find some ways to really make this happen without having to first save $1.5 million, right?
Yes.
If everybody had $1.5 million, we'd all be rich, right? So, maybe a lot of people listening to this already do, right? I don't know how many OGs are on here, but Hex has really, really done a good job of that. So one type is lean, and that means, hey, just enough to get by. A little bit more than that is more what you would call a F.I.R.E approach, and that is just a term having to do with you got more than you need, right? Maybe you got $120,000 a year coming in, and then for Coast Fire, it's really you got plenty, right? Coast Fire would be probably high end dolphin in our space today, right? If you're in that type of situation, you're really just coasting along as it builds, and you're using the compound gains that are coming from the T shares. I know it's not compound interest, but the effect of that compound interest, from the share rate, and you can kind of coast into it. These aren't super important, other than to understand how people have been approaching the FIRE. Now, not unexpectedly, if you go into one of the chat rooms, start talking to FIRE people about crypto, they'll probably ban you, kick you out, right? Because everything crypto is something. It's gotten a lot better, but I mean, a lot of the folks, they're traditionalists, right? Kind of like Bitcoin maxis or anyone else. But they are coming around, right? Things are changing. They've changed a lot in the last 4 years, and they're going to change even more in the next 4 years. And then so I threw in here in the bottom HEX.FIRE because I like that. And I'm just simply saying, hey, listen, crypto FIRE, HEX.FIRE is when you also incorporate, passive interest from HEX into your strategy. And as I was trying to illustrate before, you could do it 9 times cheaper. Providing what we know to do, right? And we continue to see what we're seeing, at least 9 times cheaper, call it 10 times cheaper, accomplish the same goals.
Yeah, and your numbers are spot on. I ran the math on we're at 5.7 cents I'm showing right now, and
Nice.
if you had if you had 500 T shares, then that would earn you an interest if the 5.8 hex per T share keeps coming, then that would earn you $60,000 per year at these prices, also equal to 1 million hex at this point.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And so what if the price has tripled in the past couple of weeks, then you would have needed like 1,500 T shares 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
to achieve the same amount. And so it's not compound interest, right? Because your T share is calculating in the beginning what the price is going to be for you to get your share of the compound interest going forward. So the interest isn't compounding as you go. You get your share of it at the beginning, right? And and so that, but it is a force multiplying interest. So it's not compound, but it's multiplying by the price appreciation. And in crypto, we know that the more something gets adopted, and the more it gets locked up, the more rare it becomes, the more the price is likely to go up if people aren't selling more than they're onboarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Pumping your own bags half the time, right? I keep buying. I can't stop. That's a little addictive, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
it is.
so far.
But it's a good addiction, maybe, right?
Well, sending money to your future self has been working out so far, and but it's brand new. You know, that type of immutable, self rewarding, self saving mechanism hasn't existed yet, which is why I've said before that I think that Richard Hart uh, eventually will get 2 to 3 Nobel prizes in
You know,
economics because
I could actually see that happening. You know,
yeah.
I see it. Hey, I don't know if that Novogratz thing was real today, but it looked real to me.
It
You
was.
know, you know, it's getting the attention. We're talking about this with some other people, but you know, the bug finds and these other things that really demonstrate. And you know, listen, I'm just part of the community. I don't think that I've made any contribution other than we're talking right now, right? So I want to change that, but I mean, I have to applaud all the devs and everybody who's done that. I mean, it's just, and Richard, of course. You know,
Yes, absolutely.
it's pretty amazing. I still think about the stupid messages I sent to him last year. That's
What?
a topic for another time.
Okay.
Well, you know, I probably made all the mistakes you could possibly make. Bought too little, bought too late, FOMO in, emergency end stake. I mean, I've done all sorts of stuff. You know,
And
I mean,
how's it working out for you still?
oh, fantastic. You know, it is. It really is. But you
Yeah.
know, I didn't know. I mean, we talked about all the different things, you know, in the videos. Well, all the videos did, anyways. I didn't understand T-shares, and I didn't
Yeah.
understand future value. I mean, I think I was talking to my wife about this. I probably unstaked and forfeited at this point $100,000 worth of hex because I
Wow.
didn't know that a couple $1 million worth, a couple million hex would be worth $100,000. I mean,
Uh-huh.
should I have known that? Sure, sure. So let that be a lesson to everybody else. Yeah, you know, this stuff could go 500x more, 1000x. You know, you really just don't know. But we do know that it's built to continue to go up, and that is
Yes.
something we're seeing. And so when that happens, I shouldn't say if, but when that happens, you know, we'll see it. And my buddy Gunter said, telling me 10 cents, man, 10 cents before we pull the trigger for Pulse, maybe $1.
Wow.
You don't want to be, I'll tell you what, I don't want to be the guy waiting back with a buy order at 5 cents, you know,
Mm.
when that hits $1. And you say it's crazy, but, you know, what was the first price? I mean, it's 0.0000000. I mean, it was pretty low.
That's
And,
right.
yeah, I know you've been around a long time with it too. I mean, I kicked myself in the ass for buying $10 at a time during the AA. Like, what the hell was I thinking? But hey, you know, $10 was $10. It was a lot of hex for that,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, yeah. So that kind of gets to, you know, so really the next slide we start talking about financial behavior, and I guess what I'd say to everybody is that's watching is, um, you know, behavior is a combination of things. This is one definition, right? You know, of your attitudes, your values, your beliefs, and there's some slides that go into some detail um, here that are part of the PDF. But you know, really understanding your behavior, why you choose to do what you do, is really important. It's not that you have to understand it all the time, but most of the time it's probably pretty good to do that, right? There's no absolutes here because we're people. You know, our emotions do get the best of us at times. But like a lot of things, you can get used to things. And once you get used to things, well, and you get used to yourself and you understand more about your behavior, you can do things that'll better fit your goals. Like, I guess I could have been upset that the price went down to 4.2 or whatever. And I bought at 5.6 yesterday. But it's okay because I know it's going to go back up. I have some real life experience where this has happened with Hex, and I believe in what we're doing. And you know, so between the belief and the value, and I think in this case the value would be, you know, that I'm going to have my diamond hands, right? So I'm not selling, Right? It's important for me to continue on, and then that forms an attitude, which is okay. I'll get it next time, maybe, but I don't need to be on it every dip, you know. And
Yes.
when it goes to the all time high again, I don't need to sell either, and I don't need to do the reverse. I don't need to FOMO in at that point. You know, I couldn't catch a drop in knife to save my life. But 5-6 is a pretty good buy. When we were looking at 6-6 is the price just a day ago. You know, so I think
Absolutely.
all of this supports that. And of course, if your goal is to be financially independent, you've got to build that passive income.
One of the things I would add to this as things that influence behavior is your environment, and that includes your social environment as well. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from three psychiatrists who were good at writing a book called A General Theory of Love, that incorporates poetry, neuroscience, psychology, and art, and lots of really cool vocabulary words. You can pretty much open up to any page and be delighted. But the quote is, "Who we are and who we become depend in part on whom we love." And
That's
so,
true.
loving yourself and loving other people enough to educate them about finances and to make a plan that works for you and your loved ones, I think makes a lot of sense. And everybody's at a different stage of life, and different stages of life have different social environments. But then that goes back to your attitudes, values, and beliefs on, how you look at money, how you look at spending versus saving, what your worldview is, whether you see the world as a positive place, a negative place, or a mixed bag, and whether you respond to new information in a way that is impulsive and gambling, whether you're trying to escape negative things by paying attention to price and to risky investments versus really having a plan, giving yourself time to wait when you get new information in order to incorporate it when you're thinking clearly. These are all skills that can be built up.
Sure. Not to mention, and you did kind of mention it a little bit here, is peer pressure. Peer
Yes.
pressure comes in a lot to this. You know, uh, wanting to make someone else happy. Some of this goes outside of crypto, but and make somebody happy. You might make really poor decisions where it affects your approach to things. So all that is a factor. I mean, you think about the number of people that probably did not get into HEX at first because somebody said, "Oh, that's a scam."
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, there's pressure that's there, and those of us who stuck with it and went forward with it, maybe with some wait and see attitude for some, we're all in, we're able to push through that.
So and
It's not
to that,
not different than Bitcoin. I mean, who thought that was going to take off? Well, that wasn't a thing.
well, and now we have two perfect examples, right? We have a Bitcoin having been around for 10 years and is up 5 million or 6 million X, right? And then we have Ethereum that's up, I think, did Richard or somebody say it's over 1 million X now? That's been around for 5 years or so. These are, if HEX had come around before those two, it would have been harder for some of us to believe so much. But now we've seen that it's possible to make these gains that were never before seen in human history, it seems. And so that's really cool that we have that precedent for HEX, and that we have so many smart people pointing out different parts of the code, different parts of the community, and the actual psychology and mechanisms here of HEX really do offer a lot of value, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, clearly the contract itself controls the mechanism, but it does what it does. It just does it, right? It's really the community that's going to make the difference and will always make the difference, right? That
Yes.
is what's that social consensus about what we're doing and whether this is valuable.
Yes. That's critical, and a lot of people in Bitcoin actually are misled because they believe that just because there's a 21 million coin cap, it means that it's scarce and that it will always be the best because it was first. And what they're failing to recognize is that Bitcoin is a socially enforced cryptocurrency decentralized network, and the part of it being socially enforced is super important, because what we've seen, if they got out from under the rock that they're hiding under, and I'm in Bitcoin too, so just remember that when I mean what you would see is that if everybody believed in Bitcoin, this occurred to me last night when I was talking to Briefit Dance, who is a Bitcoin clout chaser. She's had a viral video, over 600K views on Twitter of her dancing and cheering on Michael Saylor and everything. And it occurred to me, because we had CJ on there, who has a super successful YouTube channel, and he comes more from the gold side of things. And RG3 was pointing out, hey, gold has performed so poorly in the last 10 years compared to crypto, and even compared to other things, it's kind of been flat. And that's because gold is a socially enforced monetary value system, just like all money. And so if everybody who is getting into Bitcoin now, if they had all put their money into gold, and it had been real physical gold instead of paper gold, we would have seen the gold prices exploding upwards, as many had predicted. So the point that people make about scarcity, that is so true, but you have to be right about more than just that one component of money and value. You have to be right about the social consensus network in combination with scarcity. And in crypto, what we see is that if Bitcoin was agreed upon socially as the only cryptocurrency, then it would be so much higher in value now. It would be $500,000 or something. But instead, what we see is that there is no consensus yet. And so there's 10,000 other coins that people speculate on. If those people all got together and agreed that Bitcoin was the best, then Bitcoin would be. But it's so appreciating that in HEX and being early is so cool, because from a psychology perspective, I would imagine that whatever rewards people is going to end up causing their financial behavior to change. What we're doing in HEX is not just picking people who delay gratification. We're picking everybody who wants to believe, and then we're giving them the tools to have more delayed gratification than they ever had in their lives. And that changes financial behavior. Plus, it's rewarded, it's incentivized, which changes human behavior as well.
Yeah, and that brings to mind the delay, don't deny approach, right? And that whole delay of gratification is probably the number one skill that everyone needs to sharpen. Delay gratification.
Yes. And we got a super chat here, 73 pesos from Aaron Ellis, longtime viewer. And he says this is the 369 in pesos. And he's been taking his Omega 369 Mexican fish oil, which I recommend for people to improve their delayed gratification by strengthening their prefrontal cortex. And he, like others, are asking, can we get a copy of this PDF somewhere? And
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the chat for sure. We can throw it out there, and then we'll figure out another way to get it out if there's another place to put it.
Awesome.
For
Thanks,
sure.
Aaron.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, very much. I'm taking my fish oil too. You
Oh,
got me.
good.
I've been working on my first month. I don't think I'm taking enough dosage though. I think I need to up it. I think I'm only taking 1,200 a day. So of
Okay.
they're bigger pills, but there's only 600
Yes.
in of the actual oil, fish oil in there. So I'm working on it. I feel smarter already. My neurons are talking, right?
Can you tell?
Yeah. Actually, I do think so. I do think
Wow.
so. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah,
Um,
it's been a bit hectic, but I started about 6 weeks ago.
awesome. Yeah,
I'll let
that's
you know.
outstanding. And
Mhm.
Marcavelli, you can't don't be combining blood thinners, even if they're over the counter, like ibuprofen with omega-3. Talk to your doctor. That's the only
Very
warning.
important.
Omega-3 is supposed to be in our food. It is supposed to make up 25% of the weight of your brain because it insulates the electrical wires. So everybody out there, go ahead and get some omega-369 to improve your prefrontal cortex, and then you'll have hands that are made of graphene, and you'll have HEX hands, and you'll have better financial behavior and think more clearly usually.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. So yeah, and since we'll put this out, and we don't need to read through it all. This is a little tree, that's just basically showing. It's depicting that your behavior is affected again by your attitudes, your values, your beliefs. This is shown like a tree, like it's going from the root up, and in some ways that's true. But we're pretty complex people. We're pretty complex beings, and so all of these things, can come into play at different times. I love this because it made me think about that topic of arguing with the no coiner and
Uh-huh.
and saying, what, how could this possibly be real? And then the shifting, because I had to shift my worldview at some point, and that was probably awesome. One of the most awesome practical lessons from Richard. The acknowledgement that he changed his worldview. Because when I started talking to
Yes.
him, and I don't mean talking to him, I might have been talking to the TV, but I was talking to YouTube while he was talking. But when I was listening to him, he, it was Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. And he had that epiphany, and you could see it, take place over over a number of streams that he had. And that, yeah, he changed. He went in a different direction. And so sometimes change isn't a bad thing. They say it's always a good thing, but I don't know. But I think in this case, being able to change your worldview, and I guess the point is this: is sometimes based on our upbringing, family of origin, meaning what were your experiences, what were you taught, what's your culture, your faith, all these different things. It might make you get to a point where you have certain beliefs that are hard to let go, and sometimes you decide, in terms of this, you decide that those beliefs are no longer valid for whatever reason. You decide, you know. And yes, there are some socially enforced things, but all those beliefs really do help to craft what your values are, like you were saying before, about being, you know, your approach, which is your attitude. But are you going to be a happy person? Are you going to be a sad person? I know that oversimplifies things, because again, our minds are a little bit more complex than this. But you get to choose a lot of how you're going to react to the world and the decisions that you make, if you only examine it a little bit first, right?
Yes.
So all that comes out into our behaviors and our decisions. Um, and I like the tagline on this. The values unite and beliefs divide. Could maybe think of the
Mm.
Bitcoin axis again. And what you were saying, there probably is never going to be one cryptocurrency. Zero. There's probably a zero chance there's only going to be one. There are probably always going to be many. Now, if you stick to the belief that, your coin is the only coin, if we stuck to the belief that we didn't need anything but hex, and we would never, how would we ever transfer value, right? And so there are things that get
Yeah.
in the way, um, and there are differences between values and beliefs. And you might have your own definition, viewers out there, as to what you think a belief is or a value, but just understand that there are some differences, between them. And through experience, you can move things around on your little tree. Things, like we said, things change. Um, you may change your values. Some things become more important to you. You know, and other things become less important. And you mentioned that before, depending on your stage in life. You know, and you may change your beliefs based on empirical evidence, over time, and change that. So it's not meant to be that there's only one way. Um, but knowing about it and examining these types of things are really, really helpful.
And
And
shout
I
out
don't know.
to Andrew. Andrew, probably. Thank you for the $20 super chat. You're saying, Maddie and Chrispy, thank you for streaming. The Fire movement is an awesome program, and Hex fits with it perfully.
Oh, it does, Andrew,
Absolutely.
man. Perfect. Hey, well,
I like
you
your
try to
name.
figure. Yeah, it's hard to figure out how you're going to develop that passive income. Can you imagine if you're not in Hex? Where are you going to find this passive income without that
Yeah.
$1.5 million investment?
Yeah.
Time is money, right? And I like the idea of sending money into the future,
Absolutely.
to your future self. Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to ask you what you thought about this, Maddie, because again, definitions are definitions, right? People can come up with different things, but one of the ones I highlighted was, what's a belief? And it's an idea that a person holds as being true, you know. Um, and some things, like we talk about mathematical principles, like the hex contract. I hold that the contract does what it does.
Hmm.
But there are probably some other beliefs that I have that are based on experience, right? Maybe what I had seen, you know.
So, yeah, I think that beliefs, they can be subliminal and supraliminal, which is another way of saying conscious and subconscious.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times it's reinforced by the behavior and the experiences that we have. So, for example, if you want to start exercising more, and you know, your muscles get sore, and then that could be a reason to not exercise, and you could believe that you don't like exercising, because you didn't push through to the point where you start to get all those natural endorphins and less of the muscle soreness. And so beliefs are, I think, shaped a lot by not only what we're thinking at the time, but also kind of how our bodies have reacted over time, and the experiences that we have.
Very good. Very interesting, I think. And then more on beliefs here. One of the things about, and this was kind of like a tagline on this, or a footer, is
Oh, it looks like Crispy, uh, his connection dropped off here. So I suspect that he'll be back any minute now. Um, let's see. So I have shared my link to the type of omega 369 that I get, because people were asking here in the comments. And so here's the link to that you can find. It's the Sam's Club brand members mark, omega 369. Welcome back.
Woohoo! Was I gone long?
No, just for the last 30 seconds. And then
I
we'll
had to
have to
send
add
myself
back.
some money. I had to send myself some
Ah,
HEX in the future, so it's like
yeah.
off I went.
Glitch in the matrix.
I
And
I guess.
so we can add back your screen here when you get a chance.
Yeah, I'm all set.
There we go.
It'll come up. Maybe it was a sign from the HEX gods, right? To move on a little faster through the slides. I think what I was going to say before I got cut off was, it's not. We look to the past for direction in the future, and I would say this is it's not always the best to say, hey, this is what happened in the past, and therefore it's going to happen in the future. And we've heard the past is not doomed to repeat, but it rhymes quite a bit. We hear that term. Somebody else can say that more eloquently than me. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be part of your decision making and what you do in the future, but it may not be the best, and it's certainly not the only way to make decisions, right? Based on what's happened in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like how you included this idea that the world is changing rapidly, and that it's, in the end, it's really information. This is something that Bitcoiners say, is that money is information. Even you can boil everything sometimes down to information. And so understanding the information and being able to act on it in a way that's going to help your future self is critical in this type of an environment.
Yeah, I absolutely. Hey, I saw that come up, Ram. Thank you. That was nice of you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see. All right, and we start talking about, and this goes again to that tree and how you what you might be thinking is a belief, and when does it become a personal value? And this could be different for everybody, right? But value is more of a kind of a long-standing belief about what's really important to you, and then how that gets articulated out as a value. I had to think about this a lot. I mean, I didn't come up with all these definitions myself. It was a little bit of research, but I mean, thinking about what the text says and what does it mean to me, and I think it's kind of going through, that process, to be able to understand what your values are and what you're interested in. What your goals are. What are your plans? Like I built when I started thinking about retiring, I had to really build out what I wanted to do. What is it that I wanted to do? What are my affirmations, And so, God, is big in my head, God, family, community, right? God, family, community. Got a big family, have a pretty big community. And then where am I going to apply myself? Now, I don't know. I think this falls under value, that or a combination of values and my beliefs. I believe that I live where I live, and I have a community here that can use assistance. There are people, that do need assistance and help. We have a community in HEX, that's there. So how do we apply ourselves, to carry out that value? What are my actions going to be? And how do you develop that into actual goals. This goes a little bit beyond, just how do you plan for a good ladder, and passive income. But I think it's part of that whole personal value and belief system. It definitely affected my attitude, I recognize that, one of my number one goals is to meet that affirmation, right? Then that kind of changes things a little bit. A little bit clearer in my head about what actions I want to take, and how do I want to participate.
Do you have an example from your recent experience on this?
Yeah, without going into too much detail on personal details, like I said, I have a big family. We're kind of different than anyone else. And one of the big decisions, well, I say anyone else, well, probably a lot of people in a similar situation. My kids never went anywhere. Okay, they're all here where I live. All of my grandchildren are here where I live. So one big decision, right? I live in the Northeast. Is, hey, I'm going to move somewhere else. Maybe I'll move to Arizona. Maybe I'll move to South Carolina. Name another state, right? Another good state to go to, Texas, right? Maybe I'll move. But that's not part of what I'm doing, right? It's just not going to happen that way. All right. So turn that inside out. Well, so where should I be investing most of my time and value, right? Or, and efforts? It should be, like you, in an area that is going to benefit those that I'm hoping to, provide support to the most. And by extension, I know HEX kind of goes off into a different range, because we're like universal, man. We're almost interstellar now, but it's certainly international. We're talking to people from 6 countries a day.
Yeah.
But and by extension, you can affect people there. Anyways, so for me, it's volunteerism locally, that type of stuff. At some point, I wouldn't mind being that big tipper guy someday.
Nice.
I don't think I'll. That would be nice, right? I mean, who doesn't like to give out big tips, right? And then I think that's what prompted me. I try not to sound like an ass, but be a little more humble. But I mean, that's kind of what prompted me to pursue this, right? Because I think that people could use more information, and if it's helpful, it's helpful,
Absolutely. Yeah. And so another way that I've learned that helps people a lot when it comes to personal values is to actually write them down. Because just like making plans, plans can be easily revised in your head, whether it's a daily, hourly schedule, or whether it's a schedule for how to plan your financial future 25 years into the future or more. Keeping things only in your mind, like I said, can be too easily revised, but writing things down adds more stickiness to the idea and allows you to revisit it, to see what it really looks like on paper, and then to materialize that in your behavior much easier than your current mood of the day or whatever.
Well, there's and I think you know this already, because you said it for that reason, is it's a different learning mechanism. There's a muscle memory learning mechanism that comes with writing something down, versus thinking about it. And I think it's that stickiness you're talking about, right? And not because you got something on your hands, but because writing it down creates a different experience for your brain. And in fact, it's one of the things that's recommended for budgeting as well, because that's one of the things that happens. We have good ideas, and then you walk by something and off you go, and you buy it because it's an impulse buy,
Absolutely.
And really, again, we talked about it already and said it, but really knowing yourself a bit better, and everyone doesn't get there immediately. I'll probably take another 50 years to get there. But knowing about your values, what you're thinking about, really helps you with making rational, more rational, responsible, and importantly, consistent decisions, right? And we know in our environment here with crypto, man, emotions run high all the time, all the time, you know.
Fear
You
and
just can't help it.
greed.
And I haven't heard you talk about it. Oh yeah, fear, greed, FUD, up, down. Hey, did you notice this? I don't know if you noticed it, but I haven't seen anybody write about it. I'm sure somebody has, but it seems to me that everything that I look at, everything from Coinbase to Robinhood, some of these other apps that are out there, they actually make the charts so that they're so reactionary to create that impulse. This is my observation. So you can go, we look at a regular chart that's out there, maybe a whales chart or something else. All those look big too, but if you look at you look at a normal price chart, and you can see over the days the numbers up and down. Try pulling up one of the Robinhood charts. Something could move 0.01%, and it's got an oversized candle that looks like this, showing that they just took a digger. And man, think about the amount of people that pull that stuff up, because I caught myself doing it too. Oh, it's red, it's green, even the colors.
Yeah, isn't it with Robinhood, the entire screen changes color based
It's
on
crazy.
a momentary change. It goes from green to red, and the line is going up and down so much. I've heard people criticize the people who criticize Robinhood for gamifying things, and a little bit of confetti whenever you make a buy isn't a big deal, blah blah blah. But the types of details and points that you're making here are, I think, important for us to not skip over, and to realize that does get into people's minds, and it does create a losing strategy. And if you want to plan to lose, then you can not make a plan, and you can use tools that are there to hurt you and extract wealth rather than to perpetuate your income. If Robinhood, if their incentives were aligned with yours, which they're not, right? Because they make money when you trade, and when it seems like you're trading for free, but they're making a giant spread, and they're selling your information so institutions can front run you and sell you something at a higher price that hasn't even happened in the market yet. So that's a future spread that they're selling you, the future price that they can manipulate. It's outrageous, and so
it's all there to provoke. Yeah, it's there to provoke a response, man. It does, because like I said, I caught myself a number of times looking at that, going, click. It went down. It went down 0.0001%. It looked long. So again, I think those types of again, being able to pause and stop yourself and think about some things will help. And some of us, I'm pretty certain there's some diamond hand people on this, right? So not everyone is affected the same way, but it's still a good reminder, right? And that when we tie up values, we're talking about values being not based on necessarily on information from the past or past performance, or based on a particular situation, but more about what's important to us. What's important to us, and each of us is a little bit different, but they're intimately related to our needs. What do we think our needs are? And so I think that's
And another example that people say in the chat all the time is about valuing your health more. Now, when you stake your HEX and you're paying your future self, that creates an incentive to take care of yourself more. to be more long-term thinking, to even worry about the health of the community, worrying about educating others, and operating from a place of abundance, and valuing yourself, taking care of yourself is critical, right? And it's something that people lack in a lot, and that's another reason why I want to create something on the Pulse chain that utilizes the technology of HEX in order to allow people to pay themselves to change their own health behaviors. So instead of just having a time lock on your crypto, you could add a behavior lock to say, if I quit smoking, or if I lose weight in a healthy way, or if I am exercising more, then you can create these plans. You can lock yourself into them. They won't be foolproof, meaning that there's a lot of details and weeds that I don't need to get into now, but that I've thought through and come up with solutions for. So this idea, I think that HEX is the first example that I've seen of crypto that really changes your behavior because you're programming it in, because it's been designed to allow you to create a plan and then stick to it because it's written into the blockchain. That's what blockchains should be for, is to help people be successful with saving.
Well, and you see, one of the number one worries anyone has is being able to, manage their finances. I'm sure we've all been through it, or a lot of us have been through it. I mean, just think of the peace of mind that comes from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you experienced it because you're able to do what you want to do now. And
it's shock. I mean, there's so much, and that's what the book says, right? Like that's what the textbooks say happens when you get a sudden amount of wealth, because I did what what anybody would do in order to become more successful with his savings plan. I made a bunch of mistakes at first, and I learned from experience. I learned from other people before and after I did that, right? And then I got to the point where I was improving myself by taking omega-3, and I changed my behavior. I got to the point where I was living way below my means, and I was overperforming at work. So I was working more hours, being more efficient. My income was going up and my expenses were going down because I was delaying gratification and saving money into crypto and into Bitcoin before HEX was invented. And that gave me the opportunity to be able to speculate on HEX before I really understood what it was. And now, a year and a half later, it's really paying off in ways that I didn't expect. And so I am probably still in the shock phase, even though I've wanted to pursue this programming mental health into money for a number of years. Now it looks like at the end of this month, I'll be wrapping up my clinical work and be able to be devoted to that more full time.
That's fantastic, And I think those are all elements to this. I mean, I have to tell you the same thing. The reason I got involved with F.I.R.E. was to get myself into a position where I could retire someday, and that put me in a position to live below our means, which put me in a position to do things like put money into HEX, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so it's just exactly what you said. I mean, the trail is right there. I mean, otherwise, would have been saying, I can't afford this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. For folks, right, that are getting into this, is they also need to have a plan so their four walls stay up, and they continue to be able to make their rent and they don't lose their car, right? But at the same time, maybe applying some of that, some of the techniques in the planning and we don't have a corner on that, right? I mean, you can come up with a lot of ways to plan. But you know, having a plan is part of the battle, right?
Yes.
Be able to get started. And I think, I mean, a lot of this slide here is kind of recapping the same things again, which we can kind of move with. But, you know, again, just illustrating the point that being able to know what you need, right? What you need, what your wants are really important to be able to make those decisions. Oh, attitude. Everybody's got an attitude, right? Everybody's got an attitude. Yeah, I mean, you know, I maybe bring it back to hexagons, man. I like the attitude that we're projecting, both for hex and also pulse and our new ever expanding, you know, community of ERC 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's been a nice shift, I thought.
Oh yeah, yeah. How amazing is it to have such an amazing community, and then now we're going to be giving away free money to everybody in the smart contract space of Ethereum.
Yeah, and welcoming in other teams to work alongside us, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to believe. They don't have to believe in hex necessarily, you know, to be able to take advantage of it, you know. And so, you know, again, if we believe that, if we had a different set of beliefs, we may not be able to pursue that, right? If Richard hadn't shown the leadership in that area, we might not pursue it, right? And but we are, and it kind of relates back to this because attitudes are definitely, you know, again, not exactly a 1+1+1 type of thing. It's not exactly that attitudes plus beliefs plus values equal a mathematical outcome, but they all have an effect, right? On decisions that we make. And, you know, again, those attitudes are a big part of what we're going to do. I mean, who doesn't have the efforts, right? Who doesn't get a case of the efforts every once in a while? As in, you know, I think you know what I mean, right? So an attitude of it doesn't matter is a bad, you know, probably a bad thing. And you know, at least to have a different outcome than it does matter, right? And so, you know, having those attitudes and those beliefs about yourself and about what you're trying to do with your passive income, you know, and there may be other things you do besides hex, you know, like people talk about real estate, and there might be other ways to do it, but you know, you need to, you know, it's important to understand again what your attitude is and how you're projecting it, because it affects what's going to happen, you know, and it influences others and influences you. And you know, the more clear you are about what you're trying to do, the better you can create an attitude that affects other people. You know, maybe even to motivate them. I mean, like we said, Robin Hood figured out how to do it to us.
Yes. Absolutely.
Those are dogs.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, dogs are pretty popular these days.
Yeah. I don't know if you could hear them in the background.
Yeah.
I've got three.
What breeds do you have there?
Rat Chihuahuas.
Nice.
So rat terrier Chihuahua mixes, and they've actually been pretty good. We've been on for an hour and 40 minutes. I haven't heard anything until somebody came to the door. So they've been pretty quiet. I was telling you, I probably need a soundproof studio if I'm going to do any streaming. Right. At least it's not an ambulance, right? You know, yeah, Wales cracks me up every time that happens to him. He's on stream, and you know, down the street comes an ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so again, I mean, this is kind of going over the top in terms of information. You guys can read the slide separately, but
So
you know,
the potential for these influencers to sway
yeah,
attitudes will be greater if the person has not clearly thought through their beliefs and values. I love that.
yeah, yeah, and it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's so true. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, they're probably, again, people are different, but there've been plenty of times where people go with the flow, just go with the flow. Don't make any waves. And you miss the opportunity to be, to make a commitment, to make a difference in something
Hmm.
by doing that. And it includes, again, your own personal finances, right? And what your planning is. And so again, yeah, all these things, political correctness, you know, peer pressure, you name it, right? Things can really influence what our decisions are and
So
make you make poor
so
decisions, right?
yeah, yeah. Then you end up regretting those poor decisions, and then does that interfere with your decision making going forward? Having that guilt uh, is also a factor, right? And so
Yeah,
that's the advantage of having a plan is when you have a plan, you can adjust it and you can feel good about having at least you were realistic about the information that you had at the time. If you thought that Hex was a scam on day one and you wrote that down and you wrote down the reasons why, because Tone Vase said it and because, BitBoy said it, this and that, right? And then you
yeah,
could, then you could come back a month later and you could say, oh, wait a second, there's a huge community coming up around this. People, there's, and maybe it would have taken longer, but if that was the only information you had at the time, then you couldn't have known how good Hex was, because you didn't think through your beliefs and values clearly ahead of time, and so you were swayed by the influencers who were supposedly looking out for you, and they ended up harming your opportunity to get into something that appreciated over 1000x.
yeah, exactly. Well, I know you were involved before Hex, but I mean, let's be serious about this. The arguments for why other cryptocurrencies should exist and should be used are very similar, right? I
Yes.
mean, you can't. I mean, how can you tell me that one deserves to exist versus another? Yeah, there's some scam stuff and all that, and ours is better, of course, right? I have
Mhm.
that belief, biased belief, right? But I mean, when you're at a high level, where's the value come from? Where's the value come from, right? Again, it's the same network, and so listen to those guys. They were funny when they were doing all those interviews. Especially Tone. But what gives Bitcoin value, right? I mean, I'm not tearing it down. I'm just saying what gives it value. It's the same question no coiners ask me all the time. Where's the value coming from, Chris? This is, can you trust it?
Mhm.
You know, so, yeah.
And that's
Uh,
part of the point is that um, you don't have to trust something 100% because nothing is certain in the world. There's risk in holding the dollar. There's risk in holding gold. There's risk in everything, right? And so to to categorize things, black and white, all or none, as just either it's trustworthy or it's not, I think is the wrong way to look at something.
yeah, I
And
agree.
to understand what's the mechanism that causes the price to go up and how long does the price stay up, and what are the fundamentals, what can we learn about this new digital space of money that didn't exist before Bitcoin, right? Because everything could be copied before Bitcoin, or it had to be
Mhm.
centralized. Those were the two choices. But then there was a decentralized way to verify that something couldn't be copied, but it still had to be open source. So you could copy and you could make a version of Bitcoin called Litecoin, and you could do all these other things. And then that raised a bunch of questions that probably have never been answered super well, because everybody has their bag. And so people in Bitcoin never wanted to believe that Ethereum would be worth anything. That's the fact that they didn't trust Ethereum, whether you want to say that they should have or not. The fact that they didn't gave the 1 million X opportunity to the people who took a risk, right? Because Ethereum was an ICO. Ethereum was a promise coin, kind of still is, but it didn't make it to the number 2 spot without a bunch of people not believing in it, not trusting it, and then it evolving. And that's one of the things that we see with the narratives and with the psychology of money, is that if something really is good, it can get beat down really bad, and then it becomes even more resistant to that type of gatekeeping or that type of negative sentiment, right? And that's what we see in HEX. I mean, we have people who have locked for 15 years. So, one of the points is, well, what if there was a bug in the HEX code or something? Well, guess what? We would all be locked in. So it would get fixed, What if there were suddenly really high fees? Well, we're all still here, so, and that's getting fixed. So that's what makes me believe, I think.
Yeah, and that comes back to community too, right? And
Yes.
a combination of community and leadership. If the fees hadn't gone through the roof like this, we wouldn't be moving, right? And probably not, unless there were some other plans. But they are, and that's outside our control. And we need to move the pulse. And it made me put my Pulse FOMO pants on, man, because I'm all excited about Pulse, right? Because I see there are many coins out there, right? But I mean, the top 2 there, both are being positioned or have been positioned to be stores of value now, right? And I see that more and more with Ethereum. I don't know exactly how to play out. Anyway, so there's no reason why HEX shouldn't be in the top 3.
Absolutely.
And perhaps Pulse, right? Maybe because that's the transaction layer for it, and certainly we'll have the ability for that to happen. Now, I'm a believer in the 1000x of Pulse, so we'll see. Let's see. That's my crackpot crazy conclusion. 1000x for Pulse. Of course, from the bottom price, not zero.
Okay. Well, yeah, because it depends on the starting price, I suppose, and the really the price that everybody can get in, and I hope that and even trust that that'll be fair, because it was fair with HEX, and so I know that David Feeder wants us to take a commercial break and have you talk about tomorrow's Connecticut meetup.
Oh yeah, hey David, how you doing? So if there is anybody in the Connecticut area, Rhode Island, New York, etc., that's close enough that they'd like to come down, we're going to do a small dinner meeting in Connecticut. You can contact me at Chrispy Man on Telegram, and we're just going to get together and talk about what else, HEX. I invited my wife. She said, I hear enough about this. It's getting well. I onboarded her with a staker app, right? So that's how I onboarded her, is by doing that. And then, but so she'll probably not go with me. But I have a couple other people will probably show up. A couple of onboards, and we're meeting Michael HEX is coming up, and I'll be in that area. So at least be 4 or 5 of us getting together to probably come up with a new plan for Pulse, whatever that is. So I think I'm FOMOing him. So I think day one.
And I plugged it on Discourse Syndicate last night, and so people go ahead and contact Chrispy Man on Twitter in order to join if you'd like for that dinner.
Yeah, it's Chris. My Twitter, I sent that over, but it's Crispy Man 2 because apparently there's a 1 out there. I don't know how that happened. So I didn't think ahead, Maddie. I should have picked a different name, but somebody else already grabbed Crispy Man. But Crispy Man 2 is Twitter, and then Crispy Man on Telegram.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, I'll add that to the show notes as soon as we get off here.
And yeah, David, thanks for that. I appreciate you bringing it up. I probably would have forgotten, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. It'd be cool. Yeah, I think you were the first. I think he was the first testimonial guy, right?
Yes.
You know, it's
It was an
awesome.
awesome testimonial too. Yeah, you can check it out on hex.com/testimonials.
All right. Hey, so swinging back towards this, now we get to a little bit more budget stuff, and I promise there's not more than a couple more slides, but we talk as long as people have questions and we want to get after it. And as long as you're available, of course, Maddie. But why and how to create a budget. This is some pretty high level stuff, and we talked about building some, some other things. Some kind of exercises and whatnot for people to go through. A lot of that you can find on your own. There's a lot of different public, institutions that provide, budget sheets, and Excel has a budget sheet. And so there's a lot of resources like that. But why? Why would you do this, right? And I think the big reason is some people may have followed Dave Ramsey. I think people heard him brought up a couple times. Not crypto friendly, but knowing where you're spending your money is like huge, and being able to understand where that money is being put to use allows you to make some choices, right? Like I'm a big coffee drinker. I probably in the day could find myself at a Dunkin' Donuts, a big brand out here, right? 3 times a day. That's $10 a day. Versus I could have gone to work, got coffee for free. All right. So which one helped me more? Well, I like buying the coffee, right? Got it the way I wanted, right? But a hell of a lot cheaper for me to spend nothing or 50 cents for coffee rather than $10 a day. $10 a day is a good steak, and it's $3,650 a year, potentially.
Yeah.
To apply to something else. But if you never think about it, you're going to spend that. And believe me, I have my things I do, right? I have my own things, but at least I know what those are, and where I should cut back and try to do it. So knowing where you're spending your money is important, so that you can put it to the right place according to your plan. And so creating the plan and getting it written down is what helps you really formulate that plan, right? To get to, what are the steps you're going to take to get to that? And and that's what'll help. That's what helps make you successful in your goal setting and achieving those goals. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to track your spending, and there's apps out there that can plug into your credit card or your bank account and that sort of thing, and show you charts and graphs. But for me, I just keep a list of monthly expenses from time to time, and that's super really consistent for me because I like living a modest lifestyle, and like even now it's I think just a better way to go. And so I've created a budget and stick to it, and it's, you can have a hybrid system where you're not keeping track of every single expense necessarily, but also if you live within your means, then you're gonna have accounting whenever you pay off your credit card every month and that sort of thing. And I've actually gotten myself in the past into the hobby of the world of credit card points. And I've taken now 2 major trips out of the country, mostly for free. based on the thousands and thousands of dollars. So, well, I'd say about 10, I've gotten about $10,000 worth of miles in my lifetime, just in the past 5 or 7 years from following some of the blogs there on thepointsguy.com.
Yes, thepointsguy.com. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I like him.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, so this is kind of a great example, actually, right? You can get yourself in a lot of trouble with credit like that if you don't have a good plan and you don't have and you're not executing that plan, right? On the one hand, I've done the same thing with credit cards. In that I earn points off my card and I put those points to use. But if that leads to the card balance growing and never going away, that's a very bad thing. Probably. Because then you're paying somebody else instead of earning your own interest. You're paying somebody else that 24% interest. Where some people do get the deals, the 0% or the 8% or whatever, but generally people are paying about 20% or so, and that could be very damaging because that's 20% that could be going in a different direction for you.
That's
But
borrowing money from your future self, not sending money to your future self.
So you're making your future self poor.
Yeah.
Right? You're making your future self poor by doing that. But yeah, there are definitely some ways that you can do that. Yeah, and I love that points guy because he does. There've been some funny things that have happened. That he's put on his blog.
You mean like incredible deals or
Yeah.
something else? Yeah.
Yeah, incredible deals. And how to use them. Because you get stuck sometimes. Like I have, I've got airline miles, right? Or I did. I just used some up, and all these certificates, right? Well, can't use them. Can't use them unless I can go somewhere. And then there's all sorts of different conditions, so that depending on what it is. So it's a very weird path sometimes to get to some of that. But
yes.
But yeah, I've been there with you.
Cool.
Well, so if you find, I think probably resonate with anybody here. I mean, I don't know how much of a thing bounce checks are anymore because people don't write checks. But if you've ever paid an overdrawn fee, if you've ever come up zero or empty in your bank account before the end of the month when you're supposed to be making a payment, all that type of stuff. Those are all signs that this is probably an area that you should think about and take advantage of. It's not an indictment or judgment. I mean, I've been there, done that, plenty of times. But at the same time, if you, it's an incredible amount of stress on your life, And if you can do things like automate your payments, well, how do you automate your payments? Well, you got to know how much you got coming in. How do I know that's going to be enough? You need to know what your income is and what your expenses are. And just the automation itself, meaning auto bill pays, that type of stuff, can just reduce so much stress. Focusing in on, how to decrease your spending. I use the example of coffee. There's probably other things, one less night of drinking and smoking probably is a good thing, kind of do that, finding ways to increase your income, and then living within your means. I think increasing your income, side gigs are always good deal. I've heard a lot of people doing that. Dan's funny when he talks about, being an Uber driver. I think that's fantastic, right? But, find ways to earn extra money and bring it in, to be able to do that. And it kind of affects that whole thing what you're saying is living less than you're making, Now that's not going to be a problem much longer, but I mean, you're going to have a hard time spending all the money you got, but, with HEX and everything, but yeah, living within your means.
Well, so to that point, I think one part that I'm still trying to do the math on in my long-term budgeting is the price of a T-share in the future, because it's all fun and games when you have money coming out for 15 years, but then basically what I'm talking about is you can, if you spend all of your interest in HEX and you count the big payday as part of your interest, then your income is going to drop off radically after 15 years when all the T-shares become super expensive. And so I'm still trying to model that out to actually what small percentage or medium percentage of just the interest, not including big payday, can be lived on without disturbing the ecosystem, without the reason I'm saying disturb the ecosystem is not because I have so much HEX that I would do that, but because I understand
Yeah,
that like
bag for bag.
I understand that like my ideas and like, you know, the systems that we promote for taking profits will probably affect the ecosystem. And I'd like to have something sustainable for myself and for others going forward, to where I can more mathematically prove to some extent that at least on the HEX side of the equation, that that there's not going to be this huge drop off after 15 years. And then I'm like, oops, you know, they just figured out how to do synthetic biology, and, you know, now I could have
And you can't
awesome.
upload.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you can't upload. No, hey, that's a great topic, man. So I think that's another part of the planning to get your head around. How much is enough? You know,
Yes.
and again, not a judgment, but it's an individual thing. How much is enough? And I think then that starts kind of going in the direction of how really wealthy individuals operate, um, where maybe you don't even need all of your interest. You know, I mean,
Yes.
it wouldn't be. It's not crazy. It's not crazy for somebody to be getting 10,000 coins a day, tokens a day of HEX, right?
Mm.
Let's say it's $1. Uh, can I spend $10,000 a day? Yeah, I could spend $10,000 a day. Do I need to spend $10,000 a day? No, I probably don't. That's an awful lot of money. So maybe my plan is to take even less than full interest to pay for what I want to pay for. And maybe part of the plan is to diversify, and then, or maybe to, put into the staking pool on Pulse, or, into HEX. But I think, yeah, I'm with you. And the numbers have gotten that crazy this quick already. That's only like a magnitude difference from where we are now, maybe, where you're really seriously going to have to figure that out. Like, what am I going to do with this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And at that point, though, I mean, even, I don't want to debase your share count, but I mean, even if you began to debase your share count, other than you want to be number one and you're competitive, right? And you don't want to lose position. Is it going to really matter, at $10 HEX, whether you're making $100,000 a day or $99,000 a day? I guess it's interesting. I just don't know.
Yeah, and so that's, I guess, what I'm wanting to kind of more model out, because I think with exponential growth and with price, going up so fast and everything, I think that there's probably going to be good estimates or good equations that can be applied that really people can get behind. So again, I'm thinking about myself, but also about others, to try to strike a balance there, because I think, creating generational wealth, like, is also in line with protecting the price of HEX, right? If we all dump
Yeah.
$100,000 a day worth of HEX, onto people who are buying at $10, that might not be as healthy for ourselves and for the environment of HEX as for the ecosystem as it could be if we were throwing that out into the future.
Yeah, and I'm probably quoting whales here, but or Raoul Paul, but people don't sell assets that are valuable, right? And that's kind of your point. Like, let's not sell those assets, and that's really the point. You only need to sell what you need to sell. You know, the only reason you would sell it all is you don't believe, right? So that would be a pretty big change in your belief system, right?
And well, are you saying sell as in
Well,
sell it
in that
all
kind of,
or sell
in that kind of
a
volume.
fraction of your interest?
Yeah, I mean, if you're selling more than you need, so if you, I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
what's a reasonable amount of money to make per year from a staking ladder? 300,000 USD. Yeah, there'll be you know uh, increases in costs and all that inflation, but how much is, again, it's very personal, but how much is enough based on your situation and what's there. My goal would be to have so much X that I don't even have to think about it. But I didn't quite get there. I should. That was last year. I should have done.
Yeah.
But
Same.
to be set up with a good enough ladder that you didn't have to be concerned with it, because at some order of magnitude, if 1% is nothing of what you have. But yeah, I think it's a good point. Probably the big question is, are we going to see what we see today? Again, relying on the past, right? Or are we going to see the hockey stick?
Sure.
And I don't understand enough about the hockey stick exactly as to how we will ratchet up like that. I can understand how it could happen, but I don't know that it will happen. But I believe other people believe it's going to happen for sure. So all my calculations, I've gone super conservative with, and this doesn't sound like moon boy math at all. That over the next 15 years, I'll collect 7 times more HEX than I had when I put it into the ladder. That doesn't sound like a whole lot at the current price and share rate. But that's super conservative.
And even growing it at 40%, even growing at 40% a year it takes all of this off the charts very quickly, like so high in value, because if you follow the rule of 72, then you know that it only takes about a little bit less than 1.5 years to double if you're getting 40% APY. And so, like you said, 10 times as much interest as in the legacy system. And I think that's another area where people, their scam radar goes off and then they stop thinking. They stop thinking because they hear 40%. And I think that helps us as people who want to be new, new whales, or maybe we're not going to be whales, but new large fish in the sea, because everybody else, all the whales from the legacy financial system, they got scared off by 40%.
Yep.
And even we didn't realize where that was going to come from. In the beginning, you'll remember that HEX was paying 5 or 10% APY, and that was not enough for me to really understand staking for 15 years because of the high price volatility. We were getting 50% corrections here and there. And so getting a 10% APY wasn't, at least for me, I wasn't watching all the streams on, day 4 or day 40 or anything. And so I had to come to learn. And then with the APY going up so much, it's really a different thing now that we're dealing with, which is, but where is that APY coming from? Well, it's coming from the OA. They took our ETH and recycled it for us and bought more HEX when it went down too far. This is my opinion. And now it's giving us our cheap hex coins for free to the people who are holding the longest. So it's incentivizing us to stake and hold longer because the OA has 95% of the supply of hex and probably only needs 51% of the supply. And
Oh
so
yeah.
it's going to continue to pay this interest rate, this high interest rate, probably longer than I originally predicted when I thought that the OA only had 70% of the supply, which is, it's an amazing thing because it not only it achieves rewarding people who believe, but it also keeps scaring off people who don't believe.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, who wouldn't question the 40%, right? In normal world, right?
Yes.
Hey, for the record, I want to be a megalodon. I don't want to just be a whale. I want to be a megalodon.
What is that?
Prehistoric whale, man. Big
Ooh.
whale. We'll say. It's kind of like I guess maybe it's like a Poseidon, somewhere between a Poseidon and a whale. But yeah, I think you're onto something there. About how this may all work out and be able to plan for it. And it like I said, I know from talking with Gunter and others, my super conservative numbers, right, are very conservative. But I needed that to give me peace of mind, right? So, and I'm ecstatic, right, on how things have performed otherwise. Now, what is each individual's plan? You have to look at it, right, and make your own decisions about what you think that's going to be. And it is a moving target, right? And but like you said, when share prices become so high, is there going to be some sort of cognitive bias that people won't buy it because it's $50,000, or as an example, per T-share, or so therefore there'll be less T-shares, and so if there's less T-shares, there's more interest that goes. It kind of hurts my head after a while, right? Yeah, they try to figure it out. So I'm going to rely on the quant gang.
Fair enough. Well, we bang our heads against a wall about 5 hours a week to try to help the community. So we'll keep doing that for another 15 years here.
Yeah, no kidding, man. You'll have a beard then, a longer one. Sending HEX into the future.
That's right.
All right. But yeah. Well, I think believe it or not, this is the last slide we had, right?
Cool.
Yeah, I see Claire.
Clairvoyant. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the clairvoyant. Oh my God. Hey, let me tell you a story. I went to Arizona. Anybody from out there will know this already. I thought they were pulling my leg, man. I looked at the porch we were on outside, and they said, "Hey, we got all this screen up here for the no-see-ums." And I said, "No-see-ums? Yeah, they're these nasty bugs that bite you." And I was like, "No-see-ums?" They said, "Yeah, say it really slow." So I guess there's some bugs out there that are called no-see-ums.
Huh.
You ever hear that before? That's a real that's a real OT kind of thing. But it's true. That was kind of funny. It reminded me of that because of the clairvoyant here. So now that I just sent everybody off in a direction, what the hell is he talking about? Go look it up. No-see-ums, real bugs. They're so small they get through screens. Yeah, I started F.I.R.E about 6 years ago. Nice. Took me a little bit to get my head around it and get into it. And now I'm trying to figure out, and I've already think I've done it, but I mean really incorporate HEX into them. And because it's a way, as we were talking about earlier, you can create the same level of income at the current price and T-share rate for 10 times less than it would in a traditional market. And it's not financial advice, but that's what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
And then based on our moon math in the future, it'll be even less potentially per share. So something that we should say that the right way. If you were to purchase now, you'll make even more than that. I guess would be the better way to say that. But yeah.
Well, 40%, the power of continuing interest, right? 1.5 years to double your money, if you're considering your money in HEX terms. HEX can't guarantee what the USD price will be, but the HEX smart contract can guarantee that it will pay out HEX, and that could be very valuable in the future.
Yeah, I think that's huge, man. That's like I think that deflates all the arguments so bad, because well, how do you know you're going to get paid? Well, because the contract's immutable. It does what it does. It keeps printing out HEX. Okay, so you got HEX. How do you know it's going to be worth anything? Well, how do I know anything's going to be worth anything? It's such a circular conversation that you almost fall. Yeah, it's almost red pill, green pill, orange pill, whatever. Pick your pill. You either believe or you don't believe that it's possible, and move on. But for onboarding purposes, that conversation just keeps coming up over and over. All right, so since we're here at this slide, let's knock it off. Making money work for you, right? Income and expenses. So this goes all the way back to what you were saying before, Maddie, about building a plan, writing it down. Develop a budget. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. You work with it, but use it to know what you're spending your money on and how you can apply it somewhere else. And just like Clairvoyant had just put up there, and I told you myself. I mean, that was, and even Maddie said the same thing. It wasn't necessarily FIRE that he was doing, but he's living below his means and was able to invest in HEX. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So doing that also helps reduce the anxiety, which will allow you to make some better decisions. Because I know, man, even today, looking at the numbers as they go up and down, if I hadn't built up some resiliency to number goes up and the number goes down, I might make some bad decisions, right? So reducing that anxiety is a good thing. Gives you a good, strong sense of control. That you have things under control, and again, it allows you to kind of stick to your values a little better. And execute your plans. For myself, I can't underscore that enough. That's something that's really been helpful to me. And then, most importantly, you're able to build and protect the assets for yourself, your family, your community, whatever your version of this is. But to improve the quality of your life and what you have doing. So when that uploader comes, you can upload. You want to download, you can download. If you want to take the sends pill, you can take the sends pill. I mean, whatever it is, but to be able to do that, and that's kind of tongue in cheek, okay. But things are changing pretty quick. There's and there are technologies that are coming. Not to go off on a tangent that way, but so yeah, developing a plan and plan your spending is a big part of this. And along with that, then prioritizing those expenditures and what you're going to do, because there are people that we've all done it. I think there's probably one smart guy or lady listening to the stream that's never done it, but. Yeah, I've spent money on things I shouldn't have spent money on, and then I didn't have money on for things I needed. But again, having what they call the 4 walls covered, so you got your house, and you get the 4 walls covered, house, utilities, what you need to live, kind of following Maslow's law or Maslow's law, but or hierarchy of needs. You need to have what you need to be secure and to have a home and to be fed, and how do you participate in work? So if you need a car, you have that. So having all those things prioritized allows you to really make sure that you're going to hit the mark on that. Because if you are going to invest, and we call this crypto FIRE, and of course I put the document down here as HEX FIRE because I'm partial to HEX, right? Like I said, I like that name. But these what we're talking about are all things that apply no matter what the asset. So if you're going to buy houses, and use that as assets. You're going to buy a different crypto, use those as assets. You're going to buy stocks, and equities. You still need to be able to get there without, losing your shirt. And that means having a plan put together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've talked a lot about the staking. I didn't go in your videos, I actually showed it in the front, but investing the future is really that point of, how do you invest for the future? Is it through HEX? Is it a combination of HEX and Pulse, that type of thing? This is the part, Maddie, that things kind of trailed off a little bit here because I was thinking about what the next steps would be if folks were interested, what to put together. You had thrown that idea out about, some sort of a course or whatnot, but, we would look more like, maybe some resources, to point to existing resources to help with building a budget, or the softwares that are available for free out there. There's a lot of them out there and other literature. But bringing this all together, we've been talking about the last couple of hours has really been, understanding why you make decisions the way you do and what influences those decisions, and trying to keep them consistent with what your goals are. Going forward and setting financial goals, or objectives that you're interested in hitting. Got a little errant wave there, / but being able to set those financial goals and make sure that they're consistent, developing a budget and an investment plan to attain the goals. And this is really where it bridges back over towards what we're doing with crypto. But how do you do that? And there's a million ways to build your ladders, but I personally prefer, in my head, once I understood. And again, I was very conservative, but I do a hex flow kind of a process where I looked at my staking ladder and I wanted to have 1 million hex, let's say, per year come out. So what did I have to do to make that happen? And that sounds like a huge goal, and it is a big goal, and that would be 15 million, and that's a lot, right now, for sure. So it can be any goal that you want to make it, but you can't get there without taking the first steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know that that's a viable goal to go after, but so it's just an arbitrary number. But how do you do that? And what are you thinking about? And you pick some sort of a value, and figure out how much hex you want. It's kind of what you're talking about before. How much hex you want to come out when, and what is your goal? Are you going to continue to roll? How much interest, that type of thing. But and your plan's probably going to fail, and you're going to have to reimagine it several more times, right? I mean, I don't mean fail in a negative way. I just mean that things are moving pretty fast. And if T shares go up 7x in the next year, that's probably going to affect what I'm doing. I'm probably going to be getting a lot less T shares when I restake it.
Well, I've modeled that to not go up as quickly as you're saying.
That was not a prediction. That was
so it's
irresponsible content.
We're up. The price of a T-shirt is up about 70% in a year, and so that's, or what, a year and a half now. So that's less than double the average APY. There's going to be a number of ways to simplify how to calculate all this. I think, for example, at one point, which is probably still true, is if you stake longer than average, then you don't have to worry about inflation, right? Because inflation is, you don't even have to worry about that 3.69%, which seems irrelevant right now when we're getting paid based on the OA sacrificing Genesis coins to us, probably for years to come. But there are a lot of angles that we'll want to consider as we make more and more accurate planning predictions and or planning insights, because HEX is a dynamic but mathematical system. So there's parts that are determined by user behavior, but we'll be able to understand what the range of user behaviors can be, and then come up with better and much more accurate estimates of what our finances are going to look like in the future in HEX terms, I think.
I wish it was just one calculation I could just punch in, but it's gonna be changing though over time, right? I don't think you can predict exactly what's going to happen, because so much of this is based on human behavior.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with the transfer potential over to the Pulse chain, and I say transfer just that I'm basically thinking like what the OA does on the ETH chain after the Pulse chain is up and running, I think will be interesting. That's a topic of speculation that we probably don't have a whole lot of new stuff to say about, but I'm just saying it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I favor the theory of near instantaneous parity, but that would be a shocker, wouldn't it? That would be shocking. I mean, I think, I haven't thought through all the details of what might happen with all the ERC20s, but certainly thought a little about HEX. And at least some people believe, it could go immediately to HEX price.
I can tell you one thing. I'm going to be onboarding people into HEX on the Pulse side.
Oh yeah.
People who aren't down with all these $300 swap fees and $100 send fees. It's going to be a whole lot easier to get people into that and show them how it works. There's people who are in now who can't even practice ending a stake.
I know. That's terrible. That's another reason to be moving over. It is interesting though, because so I'm in the camp of HEX. Ethereum HEX is going to have value. I'm in that camp. I believe that's going to be the case because it's a working product, and there's no reason why it couldn't continue to have value. But it's a different demographic of people that can participate in that than the demographic that'll be. And what I hate about what's happened with Ethereum is it really has created a barrier to entry for many, many people. Where it just simply doesn't make sense to participate unless you have, thousands of dollars that you're going to put in at a time, which is not how we started. And I know nobody likes it, right? So nobody says it's a good thing, but looking at it critically, it's very possible that will become a different HEX than it is today, in that people who can afford those types of fees continue to participate there. Now, maybe the fees will come down at some point, and I can rescue my, few thousand HEX stakes. But in the meantime, I'll be operating over on Pulse, right?
Yeah. In the meantime, it's good to have options. So,
yes, it is.
Well,
Yes, it is.
I'm glad we've been able to cover so much, and I really enjoy talking with you. Are there any final points that you have here on bringing everything together?
Yeah, I think first you get to decide, how you're gonna conduct yourself and what your plan is. And I think the point is to have a plan. Pick what it is that you're looking to do, and it's okay to start small, and it's okay to to build the plan over time. It's even okay to modify it, but get started and have a plan,
Yes.
you know, for going forward. And then you can tailor that to what you need in order to accomplish your goals.
Mm-hmm.
How does that sound?
Awesome. Yeah, I like that, and it makes it more accessible and concrete to be able to emphasize that people can start with a little, like we did, and build from there.
It's true with every I think it's true with every asset and every type of investing. If you, yeah, that's why I said in the beginning, I get kind of mad when I read the, like you were talking about with the fees and some of these other things. I get a little angry when I hear in the news the FUD that says, well, you can't retire unless you have $1 million. Well, you know what? Most people don't have $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's true, then nobody's retiring. That's false, right? We know that's not true, right? People are going to retire. They're either going to not be able to work, or they're going to retire in some other way. So that's false, right? But you know, the media will put that out there, and most people, when they hear numbers like that, they're like, oh, forget it. You know, get a case of the F.I.R.E. I'm done. See you later. I'm going to go buy some more coffee. I'll be down to Dunkin' Donuts buying $10 lattes. So I'll see you later. But no, that's the wrong focus. The focus is, it doesn't matter what it's good to have an end goal, but it doesn't matter exactly what the end goal is. What it matters is getting started towards that direction, because it really does snowball, right? It does snowball. No, I've been accused of saying things 3 times in different ways before, so I guess that's all I have. Unless somebody has a question, you have a question.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad we got to cover so much. I want to make sure everybody remembers that today is the last day to order your tickets for Hexakin.Vegas, the first mass Hex meetup, and you can learn more about it at Hexakin.Vegas, and you can order. I think there's, because I set the time to Vegas time, so I think there's another hour and a half where you can order tickets. This is the late registration. There's not going to be any more registering after that. Go to hexmeetup.eventbrite.com. You can also DM me if you have any questions or have any problems with that. Are you going to be able to make it there?
I'm yeah, man, I'm booked. I'm just waiting for the Bellagio codes, man.
Perfect. Yeah, that'll be coming soon. I know T-Money, he already did he signed the contract, and so their support team has to get back to us, and it took a long time with the ARIA, but we are going to do a stream at this time next week, our every 2-week stream to plan for Vegas, so people will be able to check that out. And now, can people know where to find you?
Yeah, you find me on Telegram, yeah, on Chrispy Man Telegram at Chrispy Man, and then also on Twitter at Chrispy Man 2, because there's got to be 2 of us. Right, so.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's
Chris
as in the name CHRISPY.
Yeah, not great branding, but it is. It is
Awesome.
what it is. Get make it confusing, but I think go over to Telegram. We'll have it. I'll put that file out there. People can grab that off, make a couple minor corrections.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing this valuable resource. And I know we'll link to it in the description below. And I hope you and I can continue to work together to get the word out about how people can plan for their future and have more economic independence and freedom. And everybody can.
I'm loving it, man. Every time you bring it up, I'm loving it.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to do another stream here one of these days, so that people will continue to be able to get the benefit of this education. So thanks again for joining, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you. See ya.